Podcast time, baby. Featuring the Frustrated Recruiter, Part 2. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is Michael Midnight here, carrying on from last episode, Candidates and Staffing with Tejal Wagadia, also known as the Frustrated Recruiter. She was answering for us the biggest misinterpretation of what people think being a recruiter is about, or what recruiting entails. Let's carry on into the thicket of things, shall we? Oh, look, a tiger!
People think we just push resumes back and forth, push job descriptions back and forth. There's so much more to that. For every job that I get, I talk to anywhere from 50 to 100 people, and I present between 1 and 3.
And that makes sense. I mean, I will play devil's advocate and say that the majority of recruiters that I have, betting not 100%, but the majority, like probably high 80s, mm-hmm. They do just push out, spray and pray.
Absolutely.
And it's just, it is disappointing because I haven't had a lot of great experiences with recruiters. Very, very few. Of the few that I did have, whether I got the job or not, I was impressed by the way that recruiter held themselves, during the conversation, or I actually wanted to know them outside of work. This would be, and especially in my area of work, you go out and grab a beer with people or, grab coffee or something like that constantly. And if this is somebody who I could do that with, I want them as part of my team. And that's essentially what I feel a recruiter could be given the right circumstances and again, the right fit.
Yeah, it's like dating, right? Not every date you go to is your life partner. Not every recruiter you talk to is going to be your life partner. And I totally hear you when you say spray and pray. I have been in an environment, big name companies do that. They are all about KPIs. They're all about metrics. Make 100 calls a day. Submit 5 candidates for this purple squirrel job. My last job, I once looked at my manager who has been in staffing for 25 years, and he asked me for 5 senior level Ruby on Rails developer, but I just lost it. And I'm like, yes, let me go to the submittal tree and get you 5 submittals. That's not happening. So I definitely hear what you're saying as far as spray and pray, but it's all about, unfortunately for those recruiters, it's about the KPIs and making sure they hit their numbers.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when you do that, you're just looking at straight numbers. That's just like a business in it just for profit. If you're hurting people, then you're not in the right place because at some point it's going to fail and then you're going to... I mean, I've had that. I've had actually recent experiences that have made me question recruiting as a whole. And that's really why essentially this has come at the right time and place for the people who I have come into contact with after the fact. Even for designers, mm-hmm. I'm being a designer myself for probably doing work for over a decade now. Personally and professionally, it's a race to the bottom. You'll have so many people who want to debate on value. Well, this person said they'll do it for, $15 an hour. And I'm like, you know what? Go with that person, because if we're going to sit here and talk about price rather than value, you're not the customer I want to talk to, because that's really where your mindset's going to be. And that's ultimately, although important, yes, not the only category you should be considering when bringing somebody in. As it goes, you get what you pay for.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with you. I get that all the time. When you hear that, like, oh, the person's going to do it at $10 an hour or whatever, you're like, yeah, that person's sitting in India or China or Ukraine in a factory, and they're just pushing things out to push things out.
The same way that you have those KPIs that you're doing the same thing, just at a lower price point. We've talked about a lot of your skills, some of your headaches and highlights. What's really one thing that you personally bring to the recruiting front to try to make a difference in staffing in the recruiting community for candidates versus other recruiters or other agencies that are available? So
in this day and age, everyone has the same tools, if you will, to get the same candidate. What I bring to the table is my personality, my attitude, my drive to learn what I'm trying to fill, because I truly believe that if I cannot speak even the basic lingo of the position I'm trying to fill, there's no point in me trying to have that conversation. And that's why I started my podcast, to help other recruiters. The fact that I come from a technology background, I used to be in help desk and live and breathe technology. Technology excites me. I think the drive of wanting to speak their lingo is what makes me different.
It definitely sounds like it. And that's why I reached out to you in the first place. Just seeing the passion behind your work, your post. I mean, troublemaker at TheFrustratedRecruiter.com is definitely a memorable email. Not only can you provide that assistance that so many people need, but there's a little bit of a flair to it. Doing the type of work that I do, how I come into contact with people that I do, I mean, I can definitely understand and respect that. Comes story time now. I would be curious to know what would be one, I guess you could say, horror story and maybe one awesome story that you've had in the field. It could be working with a company, it could be a candidate.
A horror story. This is one story I love telling people about, but I have two horror stories from my recruiting time. And this was like my first year in recruiting in Arizona. I just started recruiting technical people. The first people, it was like within the first month, technical recruiting. And I called this person. And at that time, when you're staffing for contractors, you take the liability. But this person got an aggravated assault charge in attempted murder charge on there because they went to some other country, found this girl, started dating them, got married, tried to have kids with her. They went to the doctor. The doctor said, no, you're fine. You should be easily able to have kids. So they go back to their wife and they're like, I went to the doctor. I'm trying to get you pregnant. You're not getting pregnant. The wife goes, no, hang on. I forgot to tell you something. Then the wife discloses that she used to be a man at one point.
Oh, man.
And while I sympathize and empathize with the guy's scenario, they got the charge on their account. And this is what I was telling you about. People tell us things we should not know. That's my horror story. I'm like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like,
that's a toughie. I'm not gonna disagree with that. It is, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, okay. I got out, and I get out, and I empathize with the dude, but I'm thinking, what did I get myself into?
That's when you start stepping into the social work aspect of things. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when you're in the recruiting realm, it's a little bit of doctoring, it's a little bit of mothering, it's a little bit of tutoring and mentoring. And like you said, it is like a relationship. So you do get to find out, unfortunately, things that are a little bit more than just you are liable for this potential candidate. And
yeah, and as much as I would have liked to help this person, I cannot with my conscience. Was it bad what happened to him? Yeah, but you lost your cool buddies. A lot of recruiting is so much gray area that it's insane.
That is definitely a horror story. What do you have as far as for a great experience?
I was working for an agency, but our sister company was also a coding bootcamp. And I loved working with the coding bootcamp and recruiting internally with them. I got to know the CEO. It was wonderful. And when I found them their product lead, it was a great thing because we had hosted this event. And when I'm going and networking, I'm there to network. So I'll talk to everybody and I'll, have little conversations and do the matchmaking thing. And, I started talking to this person they talked about functional programming. They're like, ask me about functional programming. I'm like, what is functional programming? And they started talking and I'm like, you looking for a job? I'm a recruiter. I have to ask. And they're like, I could be. What are you talking about? So thankfully the COO and the CEO were there that night. So I just introduced them to each other and he got hired. He's there now and he's doing well. So wonderful story about how me, an introvert, went out there to network and found the right person for them.
Well, see, there you go. That's that matchmaking at its finest. It's like, listen, if I can't find you a partner, I'm going to find you a job.
Exactly.
Awesome. You know what? I think that pretty much wraps it up here. Tejal, I appreciate you being on the podcast with us here. You can find her work on TheFrustratedRecruiter.com. Appreciate your time. Thanks, TJ.
You too.
Have your own recruiter or candidate story that you want to share with us? If you're listening on YouTube, comment below. If you're listening on your podcast app of choice, feel free to email us at go@miketech.tv. You can also find our full conversation unedited on YouTube at youtube.com/MikeTech Studios. That's MIKTEK Studios. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcast app of choice. Thanks for checking out this episode. This is Michael Midnight signing off. Thanks again, guys. Bye now.